Hello, everyone. Now that we are officially in the summer months and we have started June, our Bible studies are going to take on a little bit different form. I know that schedules are busy. I understand that travel and vacation plans can throw off a routine, but I still want you to be in God's Word as often as you possibly can. And because we can't have Bible studies on Sunday mornings right now, I'm going to put something online every single week throughout the summer to help you study. And as you can see by the screen, we are starting to look at the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel happens to have 12 chapters, and there are, give or take, 12 weeks in these summer months. And so not only does it match up nicely with our schedule, the book of Daniel is also one of the most fascinating books of the entire Old Testament. If you have not read the book of Daniel before, or if you haven't read through it in a while, I'm excited for you because you're going to love it. It is filled with these incredible stories in the first part of the book, the first 6 chapters, and then the second set of 6 chapters are filled with these crazy visions about the future. The reader's guide for the book of Daniel is just a 10-minute or less review of each chapter to help you with a little bit of the historical background of these books and to make sure that you know exactly what's happening as you get into each chapter. It's going to be good. So 10 minutes or less every single week. And that, of course, means you're going to have to then read the chapter afterwards. But it's only one chapter per week. You can do it. I'll do it with you. It's going to be great. The first chapter then is called Uprooted because this is where the book of Daniel and the story of Daniel really begins. I'm going to give you a little bit of background so that we have a running start into chapter 1. Now, the kingdom of Judah itself had been experiencing a fast downward spiral for many, many years. They had rejected the Lord. They were not listening to his word. They had kicked out and killed some of the prophets that he sent to them, and it was not looking good for them, no matter how many warnings the Lord had given them over the years. So he sent the Babylonian army over, and the Babylonians exiled the inhabitants of Israel. Exile simply means that they take people from a land and send them to another land so that they cannot live in their own country, in their own nation anymore. This happened 3 times to the Israelites by the Babylonians. You have a date there, 605 BC, before Christ. That first exile or deportation was when Daniel was taken over along with some of his friends. The king of Babylon came over a second time in 597, and that's when the prophet Ezekiel and other people were taken over to Babylon. And finally, the third deportation is the big date, 586 BC. That is officially when Jerusalem was completely destroyed. The walls were knocked down. The temple itself was burned to the ground. Everything in the temple was taken over to Babylon. And really the nation of Israel, the kingdom of Judah, kind of ceased to exist as an autonomous nation after that. Daniel is going to live through that all, but mainly in Babylon after that time. You'll see in chapter 1 that Daniel is probably a teenager when he is uprooted to Babylon. He's a very young man, so he's going to spend the majority of his life in a foreign nation. What you should watch for in chapter 1, and chapter 1 is filled with some interesting information as we get into the other chapters as well. Daniel and his friends are given new names. I want you to think about why that would happen. Why would the king of Babylon give Daniel and his other Jewish compatriots different names, Babylonian names? How is that going to help to integrate them into the Babylonian culture? Another thing that you want to look for is Daniel's hesitation to eat what was set before him, because they were trying to prime Daniel and the other young men to get ready to serve the king of Babylon. But there are certain passages, especially in the book of Leviticus there, that point out what the Israelites are not supposed to eat, some of the foods and some of the animals that they were supposed to avoid because they were unclean. I want to take a look at some of those verses that give you just a sampling of what Daniel wanted to avoid, as we see in chapter 1. And finally, there's something else to watch for, is that God gave Daniel and his friends, and they keep calling them his friends, but you will know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when you get there. He gives them some special talents, some special gifts, so that the king of Babylon notices them and recognizes them and immediately wants to put them into positions of prominence so that they can help him serve this vast empire that continues to expand. I'm also going to give you the main point of each chapter as we go through. The main point here is the Lord was with Daniel and blessed him during a traumatic time in his life. Remember that Daniel is a young man. He's uprooted from his home after it's completely destroyed. His parents may not have made it. They may have been killed in melee. Certainly, many of Daniel's friends and neighbors were slaughtered as the Babylonians came in. And now he is ripped away from his home, sent to a different country with a different language, with a different culture, with a different government. And Daniel well knows that he's probably never going to get back home. What a traumatic time for this young man. And yet we see that the Lord is with him even during these difficult situations. But we don't just want to look at the main point of every chapter. We also want to see, what does this have to do with my life? Why should you bother reading this chapter of the Bible? Think about this as you read through chapter 1. The Lord promises that he will be with you and will bless you no matter what kind of traumatic experiences you face in this world. This is a truth that is laid out in Daniel chapter 1, not just for the life of Daniel, but for your life too. Keep that in mind. Now that we've gone through the reader's guide, it is time to read Daniel chapter 1. That is your job this week. Read through this chapter, think of what we talked about here, review this video if you need to. And of course, if you ever have any questions, if you have comments, and if you need a little bit further explanation, my email is there at the bottom of the screen, frymp@hotmail.com. You can email me anytime, and I'd be glad to help in any way I can. There is your review. We got it done in a good amount of time, just under 10 minutes. Have a good study this week, and I hope that you can continue with me through the book of Daniel all summer long. Have a good day, and Lord's blessings in his word.